The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, but they weren't for me. My name is Sylvia, and I'm about to tell you the story of how I gave my sister everything and lost myself in the process. But let me start at the beginning, when I still believed family meant something. Sylvia, you're our miracle worker, Valerie said, her voice thick with tears as she clutched the positive test. I can't believe you're actually doing this for us. I was sitting in their pristine living room, surrounded by cream-coloured furniture that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Weston paced behind the couch, his hand shaking as he stared at the test. This is really happening, he whispered. We're going to have a baby. The way he said it made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling down. This was what I'd signed up for. After 3 miscarriages and 2 failed IVF attempts, my sister had looked at me with such desperate hope when she asked if I'd consider being their surrogate. You're the only one who can help us, she'd said. Please, Sylvia, you're our last chance. How could I say no? Valerie had always been the golden child. Beautiful, successful, married to a man who worshipped her. She had everything except the one thing she wanted most. And me? I was 32, single, working a dead-end project management job, living in a studio apartment with a broken air conditioner. If I could give her this one thing, maybe I'd finally matter. We'll take such good care of you, Mom said, appearing in the doorway with a tray of tea. She'd driven over the moment Valerie called with the news. You're doing something so selfless, honey. So beautiful. I'd never heard her call me beautiful before. The next 9 months were like living in a dream. Suddenly, I was the centre of attention. Valerie texted me every morning asking how I felt. Weston insisted on driving me to every appointment. Mum called daily with advice about prenatal vitamins and what to eat. You're glowing, Dad said during one of our weekly family dinners. Pregnancy suits you. Even my extended family got involved. Cousin Zoe threw me a baby shower. Well, technically it was for Valerie, but I got to sit in the place of honour and open gifts. Aunts and uncles who usually forgot my birthday suddenly remembered I existed. You're an angel, Aunt Patricia told me, squeezing my hand. Not everyone would do what you're doing. For the first time in my life, I felt important, needed, like I belonged somewhere. The labour started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I called Valerie first, then the hospital, then somehow found myself in the back of Weston's car, gripping the door handle as contractions tore through me. You're doing amazing, Valerie kept saying from the front seat. Just breathe. We're almost there. 18 hours later, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby's first cry. My baby's first cry. It's a boy, the doctor announced. A healthy baby boy. I was exhausted, shaking, covered in sweat, but I'd never felt more accomplished. I'd done it. I'd given them their miracle. Can I hold him? I asked, reaching out with trembling arms. The nurse looked at Valerie, who was already standing beside the bed, with her arms extended. He needs to go to his mother first, the nurse said gently, placing the baby in Valerie's arms instead of mine. I watched my sister cradle the child I just delivered, her face radiant with joy. Weston wrapped his arms around both of them, tears streaming down his cheeks. He's perfect, Valerie whispered. Look at him, Weston. He's absolutely perfect. They were so absorbed in their moment that they didn't notice me lying there, empty and forgotten. The nurse was busy cleaning up, the doctor had moved on to the next patient, and my family was complete without me. What are you going to name him? I asked quietly. James, Weston said without looking at me. James Weston Wallace. No mention of me, no acknowledgement that I'd just spent 9 months growing their son, or that I'd just endured nearly a day of labour to bring him into the world. I'd like to hold him, I said again, louder this time. Valerie finally looked at me, and something in her expression had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something cold and distant, You should rest, she said. You've done enough. The nurse handed me a discharge packet and a check. Your sister asked me to give you this, she said quietly. I stared at the piece of paper in my hands. Payment for services rendered. Like I was a contractor who just finished a job. You can go home now, Mum said, appearing at my bedside. Stop acting selfish and let them have their moment. I went home alone that night, my body empty, my heart shattered, holding an uncashed check that felt like 30 pieces of silver. The silence started immediately. I called Valerie the day after I got home from the hospital. My body ached, my breasts were swollen with milk that had nowhere to go, and I just wanted to know how James was doing. Hi, you've reached Valerie. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you. I left 3 messages that first day, then 5 the next. By the end of the week, I'd stopped counting. Maybe she's just overwhelmed, I told myself, dialing Mum's number instead. Sylvia, honey, you need to give them space, Mum said before I could even ask about the baby. They're adjusting to being new parents. This is their time. I just want to know how he's doing. I carried him for 9 months. And now your job is done. You should be proud of what you accomplished and move on. Move on. Like James was a project I'd completed, not a child I'd grown inside my body. I tried Dad next. Your mother's right, he said. You did a wonderful thing, but now you need to let them be a family. What about me? Am I not family? The pause stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Of course you are, sweetheart. But this is different. You understand. I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of it. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. Valerie's first post about James. The photo showed her in a hospital gown, glowing and radiant, holding a tiny bundle. The caption read, "After years of heartbreak and loss, our miracle finally arrived. James Weston Wallace, born at 9:47 p.m, 7 LBS 3 Oz. We are so grateful for this blessing." The comments poured in immediately. Congratulations! He's beautiful! So happy for you both. You deserve this joy. What a perfect little angel. You must be over the moon. After everything you've been through, this is such wonderful news. Not one mention of me. Not one acknowledgement that I'd been the one in that hospital bed, the one who delivered their miracle. In Valerie's version of the story, James had simply appeared, a gift from the universe to reward her suffering. I screenshot the post and texted it to her. Really? Not even a thank you? The response came back within minutes. Please don't contact me again. We've moved on and you should too. I stared at the message until my eyes burned. Then I called her. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She'd blocked me. My own sister had blocked me. I tried calling from my work phone the next day. Sylvia, Valerie's voice was sharp. I told you not to contact me. I just want to see him, just once. I won't ask for anything else. That's not happening. We have a lawyer now, and he says any contact from you could be considered harassment. Harassment? I'm his... You're nothing to him. You were an incubator, and now that job is finished. If you keep calling, we'll get a restraining order. The line went dead. I sat in my cubicle, shaking, as my co-workers went about their normal Tuesday morning routines. Someone was microwaving fish in the break room. The printer was making that grinding noise again. Everything was exactly the same as it had been before, except I felt like I was dying inside. You okay? My manager Kevin asked, stopping by my desk. You've seemed off lately. I'd been making mistakes, missing deadlines, forgetting meetings, staring at my computer screen for hours without accomplishing anything. The pregnancy had already put me behind at work, and now I couldn't focus on anything. I'm fine, I lied. But I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. The Facebook posts continued. James's first smile. James sleeping peacefully. James in a tiny baseball outfit. Each photo was like a knife twisting in my chest. The comments kept coming too. Hundreds of people celebrating Valerie's joy while I sat alone in my apartment, pumping and dumping breast milk because my body didn't understand that my baby was gone. I tried reaching out to other family members. Cousin Zoe was sympathetic but cautious. "I'm sorry this is so hard," she said when I called her crying. "But maybe they're right. Maybe some distance would be good for everyone." Distance? I gave birth to him 3 weeks ago. "I know, but it's complicated, Sylvia. You knew this was the arrangement." Even she didn't understand. Nobody understood. The breaking point came when I saw Valerie's post about James's 1-month milestone. She was holding him in the same rocking chair where she used to sit when we were kids, the one in Mum's living room. The caption read, "1 month of pure joy. Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every precious moment. It's all been worth the wait. Being his mommy is the greatest gift I've ever received." I drove to Mum's house without thinking, my hand shaking on the steering wheel. I needed to see him. I needed to hold the baby I'd carried for 9 months just once. Mum answered the door with James in her arms. "Sylvia, what are you doing here?" "I want to see him." "You can't just show up like this. Valerie and Weston are inside." "Good. We need to talk." "No." Mom stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "You need to leave. Now. He's not yours. He was never yours. You were helping your sister, and now it's time to move on with your life." I reached for James, and Mum actually stepped back, clutching him tighter. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she said. "Go home, Sylvia. Find something else to focus on." I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing with angry texts from Valerie about ambushing them and violating boundaries. By the time I got to my apartment, there was already a voicemail from their lawyer. That night, I lost my job. Kevin called to tell me they were restructuring my position. "It's nothing personal," he said, "but your performance lately." I hung up and sat in the dark, holding the uncashed check they'd given me at the hospital. Everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given up, and this was what I had to show for it. A piece of paper and a family that wanted me to disappear. The letter arrived the next morning, delivered by certified mail. The return address showed a law firm I'd never heard of. Underwood and Associates. I tore it open with shaking hands. Urgent. Regarding the estate of Josephine Dawson. The law office was nothing like I expected. Instead of mahogany and leather, Maggie Underwood's office had white walls, modern furniture, and a view of the city that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Sylvia Porter? The woman behind the desk was younger than I'd imagined, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes and perfectly styled blonde hair. "I'm Maggie Underwood. Please, sit down." I clutched the letter in my sweaty palm. "I don't understand why I'm here. My godmother died 6 months ago. I went to the funeral." "Yes, but her will wasn't read until last week. There were complications with the estate." Maggie opened a thick folder. "Josephine left very specific instructions about her inheritance. $10 million to be exact." The number hit me like a physical blow. 10 million? She was quite wealthy, made some smart investments in tech companies back in the 90s. Maggie pulled out a document. "But there's a condition, a very specific condition." My hands were shaking. "What kind of condition?" "The inheritance can only be claimed by you, but only if your biological child is legally recognized as yours and physically present during the claim process." I stared at her. "My biological child?" Josephine knew about the surrogacy arrangement. She also knew about your family's treatment of you afterward. Maggie leaned forward. She was quite upset about it, actually. Called me 2 weeks before she died, ranting about how they'd thrown you away like garbage. She knew. Josephine knew everything. She also knew that your sister and her husband are in serious financial trouble. The room felt like it was spinning. What do you mean? Maggie pulled out another folder, this one even thicker. Weston's construction company is hemorrhaging money. 3 major projects fell through last year. They're behind on their mortgage, maxed out their credit cards, and facing bankruptcy within 6 months. How do you know all this? I'm very good at my job. Maggie's smile was sharp. The interesting part is that Valerie has already tried to claim Josephine's inheritance. Twice. What? She showed up here 3 weeks ago with forged documents claiming James was her biological child. When that didn't work, she came back with your parents, trying to argue that since you were just a surrogate, the inheritance should go to the real mother. I felt sick. And I told her the same thing I'm telling you. The will is very clear. The biological mother must be legally recognised and the child must be present. No exceptions. But I signed papers, giving up my rights. Surrogacy agreements can be challenged, especially when there's evidence of coercion or fraud. Maggie opened another file. Tell me, did anyone pressure you to sign those papers? I thought about Mom telling me to stop being selfish, about Valerie's lawyer threatening harassment charges, about being blocked and erased from James's life. Yes, good, because I've been researching your family's behaviour since the birth. The social media posts, the complete erasure of your role, the threats, it all builds a case for emotional coercion. You want me to fight them? I want you to get what's rightfully yours, both the money and your son. They'll destroy me. They have lawyers, money. Had money? Past tense? Maggie slid a bank statement across the desk. This is Weston's business account as of yesterday. Negative $43,000. Their house is in foreclosure proceedings. Valerie's been selling jewellery to pay for groceries. I stared at the numbers. They're broke? Completely. Which is why they need that inheritance so desperately, and why they'll fight dirty to keep you from claiming it. What are you saying? I'm saying your family has painted themselves into a corner. They can't claim the money without acknowledging you as James's biological mother. But if they do that, they lose their narrative about being his real parents. The pieces were clicking together. So they're stuck. Unless they can make you disappear permanently, which, judging by their behaviour so far, seems to be their strategy. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. What would I have to do? File for custody, challenge the surrogacy agreement, force them to acknowledge your parental rights in court. Maggie leaned back. It won't be easy. They'll fight back hard. They'll try to paint you as unstable, greedy, a threat to James's well-being. And if I win, you get your son back, and $10 million. And if I lose, you're exactly where you are now, alone, broke, and forgotten. I looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, James was taking his afternoon nap. Probably in the nursery Valerie had decorated with money she didn't have. Somewhere out there, my family was living a lie that depended on my silence. There's something else? Maggie said quietly. Josephine left you a letter. She wanted you to read it before making your decision. She handed me an envelope with my name written in Josephine's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My dearest Sylvia, it began. If you're reading this, then they've done exactly what I feared they would do. They've used you and thrown you away, just like they always have. You were never the problem, sweetheart. You were never too much or not enough. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see your worth. Don't let them steal your son the way they stole your childhood. Fight back. You're stronger than you know. All, my love, Aunt Josie. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. "How far are you willing to go?" Maggie asked. I thought about James's first cry, about the way he'd felt in my arms for those brief moments before they took him away, about 9 months of growing him, loving him, talking to him every night. "As far as it takes." Maggie smiled, and for the first time since James was born, I didn't feel alone. "Then, let's go to war." The first shot was fired 3 days later. "They served me at work," I told Maggie over the phone, staring at the legal documents that had been delivered to my temp job. "In front of everyone." "What does it say?" "Restraining order. I'm not allowed within 500 feet of James, Valerie, Weston, or my parents. They're claiming I'm mentally unstable and pose a threat to the child." "Perfect." "Perfect? How is this perfect?" "Because they just proved our point about coercion. No loving family gets a restraining order against someone who carried their child. This makes them look desperate." I was sitting in my car outside the office building, too embarrassed to go back inside. My supervisor had pulled me aside after the process server left. "Maybe this assignment isn't working out," she'd said, not meeting my eyes. Another job gone. "Sylvia, are you listening?" Maggie's voice cut through my spiral. "Sorry." "What?" I said, "We're filing our counter-motion tomorrow. Custody petition, challenge to the surrogacy agreement, and a formal claim on Josephine's estate." "They're going to hate me." "They already hate you. The difference is now you're fighting back." That evening, Zoe called. She was whispering like she was afraid someone might overhear. "Sylvia, what the hell is going on? Mom called me screaming about lawyers and money." "I'm claiming my inheritance from Josephine, the one that requires James to be there." "Yes." "Oh my God, you're really doing this." "They cut me out completely, Zoe. They blocked my number, got a restraining order, and now they're trying to claim money that's legally mine." "But James is my biological son. I carried him for 9 months. I gave birth to him and they erased me like I never existed." Zoe was quiet for a long moment. "There's something you should know. Valerie tried to get Josephine's money weeks ago. She showed up at the lawyer's office with fake documents." Maggie told me. "No, I mean, she's been planning this for months. Even before James was born, she was asking questions about Josephine's will. She knew about the inheritance clause." My blood went cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe the reason she wanted you to be the surrogate wasn't just about having a baby. Maybe she knew she'd need your biological child to claim the money." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Valerie's sudden interest in having me as a surrogate after years of barely speaking to me, the way she'd pushed for the arrangement even when I'd hesitated, the immediate coldness after James was born. She used me. I think so. And now she's panicking because she can't get the money without admitting you're James's real mother. Are you willing to testify to that? Testify? Sylvia, I can't get involved in this. My mum would kill me. The whole family is choosing sides. What side are you on? Another long pause. I think what they did to you was wrong, but I can't go to court. I'm sorry. She hung up, leaving me alone with the truth. My sister hadn't just stolen my son. She'd planned it from the beginning. The next morning, Maggie called with an update. They hired Talon Holland. Should I know that name? He's expensive. Really expensive. The kind of lawyer you hire when you're desperate and willing to do anything to win. Great. It also means they're scared. Holland doesn't come cheap, and we know they're broke. Someone's funding this. Who? I'm working on that. But, Sylvia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. How far are you willing to go with this? Because Holland plays dirty. He'll dig up every mistake you've ever made, every embarrassing moment, every weakness. he'll try to destroy you publicly. I thought about the restraining order, about being served at work, about watching my family celebrate James on social media while pretending I didn't exist. Let him try. There's more. I think we should consider going public with this story. The media loves a good family drama, especially one involving surrogacy and inheritance. You want me to go on TV? I want to control the narrative before Holland does. Right now, your family is painting you as unstable. We need to show the world what really happened. What if it backfires? What if it doesn't? What if people see the truth? That you were used and discarded by your own family? That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Sylvia, this is Melina Brewer. I was your nurse when James was born. I remember you. I heard about the legal case. I wanted you to know what they did to you that day wasn't right. I've been a labour and delivery nurse for 15 years, and I've never seen a surrogate treated like that. What do you mean? The way they wouldn't let you hold him. The way they rushed you out of the room. Most surrogates get time with the baby, especially when it's family. Your sister acted like you were contagious. Would you be willing to testify to that? I've already called your lawyer. What they did was cruel, and I won't stay quiet about it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. That evening, Maggie called with news. Holland filed a motion to have the inheritance case dismissed. He's arguing that surrogacy agreements supersede biological parentage in inheritance law. Can he do that? He can try. But here's the interesting part. The motion was filed by someone with deep pockets. The legal fees alone are probably $50,000. Who's paying for it? I have a theory. But first, I need to ask you again. Are you ready to take this public? Because if we're going to war, we need every weapon we can get. I looked around my empty apartment, at the unpaid bills on my counter, at the silence where my family used to be. Do it. Good. Because I've already scheduled an interview with Channel 7. We're going live tomorrow night. The interview aired on a Tuesday night. I sat in the Channel 7 studio, hands folded in my lap, trying not to shake as the cameras rolled. Tell us what happened after you gave birth, the reporter, Sandra Martinez, said gently. They wouldn't let me hold him. I asked twice, and they acted like I was being inappropriate. Then they handed me a check and told me to go home. A check? Payment, like I was a contractor who'd finished a job. Sandra leaned forward. And your family supported this treatment? My mother told me to stop being selfish. My sister blocked my phone number. They got a restraining order to keep me away from the baby I carried for 9 months. The segment was only 8 minutes long, but it felt like hours. By the time I got home, my phone was exploding. The first call was from Mum. How could you do this to us? She screamed before I could even say hello. You're destroying this family. I'm telling the truth. You're embarrassing us. Everyone we know saw that interview. The neighbours, people from church. Good. Maybe they should know what kind of people you really are. You ungrateful little... The line went dead. The next call was from a number I didn't recognise. Is this Sylvia? I saw your interview. I'm a surrogate too, and what your family did to you is horrific. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. Then another. Girl, I'm rooting for you. Get your baby back. And another. I can't believe your own family treated you like that. You're so brave for speaking out. But the negative calls came too. You're a greedy bitch trying to steal someone else's baby. Surrogates don't get to keep the children. That's not how it works. You're mentally unstable. I hope you never get near that poor child. By midnight, the Channel 7 Facebook page had over 3,000 comments on the interview video. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning. Team Sylvia, get your son back, Mama. This is so sad. Her own family abandoned her. Something is not right here. Why would they treat her like this unless they're hiding something? But there were just as many attacking me. She's just after the money. $10 million. Of course she wants the kid now. Surrogates who try to keep babies are the worst. She knew the deal. The sister seems like a loving mother. This woman is trying to destroy a family. The next morning, Maggie called with an update. It's working. Holland's office has been fielding calls all night. The story's gone viral. Is that good or bad? Both. The pressure's getting to them. Valerie posted a response on Facebook. I pulled up her page immediately. The post was long, written in her perfectly polished voice. I'm heartbroken by the lies being spread about our family. Sylvia agreed to help us have a child, and we will be forever grateful for that gift. But now she's trying to destroy our family for money. James is our son, legally and in every way that matters. We're fighting to protect him from someone who has shown herself to be unstable and vindictive. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. The comments were pouring in there too, but these were mostly supportive of Valerie. Stay strong. You're protecting your baby. I can't believe she's putting you through this. Some people will do anything for money. Praying for your family during this attack. My phone rang. It was Maggie. Have you seen the response? Just read it. Good. Because now we know their strategy. They're painting you as mentally unstable and money hungry, which means we need to hit back harder. How? Melina's going on record. Channel 7 wants to do a follow-up segment tomorrow night. She's going to talk about what she witnessed in the delivery room. That afternoon, I got a call from Zoe. Sylvia, you need to stop this. Stop what? Telling the truth? The whole family is falling apart. Uncle Larry had to take blood pressure medication after seeing the interview. Aunt Patricia is getting harassed at work because someone recognised her from your Facebook photos. Maybe they should have thought about that before they threw me away. This isn't just about you anymore. You're hurting innocent people. Innocent? Where were these innocent people when I was being erased from James's life? Look, I get that you're angry. Angry? Zoe, they used me to get pregnant, stole my child, and now they're trying to steal my inheritance. This goes way beyond angry. But the money is mine. Josephine left it to me with conditions they can't meet, without admitting I'm James's mother. They're the ones being greedy. Just think about what you're doing. Once this goes too far, there's no coming back. She hung up and I realised she was right. There was no coming back, but I was past caring. The second interview aired the next night. Melina was professional but firm. In 15 years of nursing, I've never seen a surrogate treated with such coldness. Most families include the surrogate in the celebration, especially when it's a family member. Sylvia was treated like an outsider from the moment the baby was born. What did you observe specifically? She asked to hold the baby twice and was refused both times. The family acted like she was contaminated. Then they rushed her out of the room while they had their bonding time. It was cruel. Sandra turned to the camera. We reached out to the family for comment, but their attorney advised them not to respond. That night, the story exploded across social media. Justice for Sylvia started trending on Twitter. TikTok videos analysed the case. Reddit threads dissected every detail. But Valerie's supporters were organising too. Protect James became their rallying cry. They shared photos of Valerie with James, painting her as a devoted mother under attack. The battle lines were drawn, and my family was on the other side. Friday morning, Maggie called with the news that changed everything. I found out who's funding their legal team. Who? Your parents took out a second mortgage on their house. They're paying Holland's fees. They mortgaged their house for $400,000. Sylvia, they're betting everything on this case. If they lose their home. I sat down hard. They really think I'm the enemy. They think you're trying to destroy them. And maybe you are. Maybe I am. Good, because the court date is set. 2 weeks from Monday. Are you ready? I looked around my empty apartment, at the life I'd built from nothing after they'd thrown me away. I'm ready. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters and protesters, signs reading "Justice for Sylvia," mixed with others saying, "Protect James." I pulled my jacket tighter and pushed through the crowd with Maggie beside me. "Sylvia! Sylvia! How do you feel about taking a child from his loving home?" a reporter shouted. "No comment," Maggie said firmly, guiding me toward the entrance. Inside, the courtroom was standing room only. I spotted my parents in the front row behind Valerie and Weston. Mum wouldn't look at me. Dad stared straight ahead like I was invisible. Judge Patricia Morrison called the court to order. She was a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and no patience for drama. "This is a custody hearing, not a circus," she announced. "I will not tolerate outbursts from the gallery." Holland stood first. He was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Your Honour, this case is simple. Sylvia Porter entered into a surrogacy agreement with my clients. She was compensated for her services and willingly relinquished all parental rights. Now, motivated by a substantial inheritance, she's attempting to destroy a loving family." He gestured toward Valerie, who was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "James has known only one mother, Valerie Wallace. To remove him from the only home he's ever known would be traumatic and cruel. We ask the court to uphold the original surrogacy agreement and dismiss this frivolous custody claim." Maggie stood when it was our turn. "Your Honour, this case is about more than custody. It's about a family that used and discarded a woman who gave them everything. The evidence will show that Sylvia was coerced into signing away her rights, then systematically erased from her biological child's life." She opened her folder. "We'll prove that the defendants knew about the inheritance clause before the surrogacy arrangement began, and that their treatment of Sylvia after the birth was designed to eliminate her from the equation entirely." Holland called Valerie as his first witness. She took the stand wearing a navy dress and pearls, looking every inch the grieving mother. "Mrs. Wallace, please tell the court about your relationship with your sister. I love Sylvia. I always have. When we couldn't have children, she generously offered to help us. We were so grateful. And after James was born, we tried to maintain a relationship, but Sylvia became difficult. She wanted to be involved in ways that weren't appropriate. She would show up unannounced, call constantly, even tried to take James from my mother's arms." I gripped the table. That wasn't what happened. We had to protect our son. The restraining order was a last resort. "Mrs. Wallace, are you aware of the inheritance your sister stands to gain? $10 million. It's heartbreaking to think she tried to take my child for money." Maggie stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Wallace, when did you first learn about Josephine's inheritance?" "After she died, when the will was read." "Are you sure about that?" Valerie hesitated. "Yes, Your Honour, I'd like to present Exhibit A." Maggie handed papers to the clerk. "These are phone records showing multiple calls between Mrs. Wallace and Josephine's estate attorney, dating back 8 months, 2 months before James was conceived." Holland objected, but the judge allowed it. "Mrs. Wallace, why were you calling the estate attorney before your sister was even pregnant?" I don't remember those calls. Let me refresh your memory. You called asking about the inheritance clause, specifically whether a biological child needed to be present to claim the money. Valerie's face went pale. That's not... I was just curious about Josephine's will. Curious enough to call 6 times in 2 weeks? Objection. Badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, counsellor. But the damage was done. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Next, Holland called Weston to the stand. Mr. Wallace, describe your relationship with James. He's my son in every way that matters. I was there for every doctor's appointment during the pregnancy, every milestone since he was born. I love him more than life itself. And Sylvia's role? She was helping us have a family. We're grateful, but her job was done when James was born. Maggie's cross-examination was brutal. Mr. Wallace, is it true your construction company is facing bankruptcy? We've had some financial challenges. Challenges? You're 3 months behind on your mortgage, your business account is overdrawn, and you've maxed out 7 credit cards. Would you call that challenges? Objection? Relevance? Your Honour, it goes to motive. The defendants desperately need this inheritance money. I'll allow it. Mr. Wallace, did you know about the inheritance clause when you agreed to the surrogacy? No. Then why did your wife call the estate attorney multiple times before the pregnancy? Weston looked at Holland desperately. I don't know about any calls. You don't discuss your wife's phone calls with estate attorneys? Objection. Sustained. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Holland called Mom to the stand. Mrs. Porter, you were present when James was born? Yes, it was beautiful. Valerie was so happy. And Sylvia's behaviour afterward? Mom looked directly at me for the first time all day. She became obsessive, calling constantly, showing up uninvited. We were worried about her mental state. Did you support the restraining order? We had to protect James. Sylvia wasn't thinking clearly. Maggie stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Porter, did you tell your daughter to stop being selfish when she asked to hold the baby she just delivered? Mum's jaw tightened. She needed to understand her role was finished. Her role? You mean carrying your grandson for 9 months? She was helping her sister. That's what family does. Is cutting off all contact what family does too? We didn't cut off contact. She became impossible to deal with. Mrs. Porter, are you aware that you and your husband took out a second mortgage to pay for this legal battle? Holland jumped up. Objection. Relevance. It shows how far the family will go to keep the inheritance from my client. Sustained. The jury will disregard. But it was too late. Everyone had heard it. The biggest surprise came when Maggie called Forrest to the stand. Valerie's 12-year-old stepson looked terrified as he was sworn in. Forrest, you were present when Sylvia visited your grandmother's house. Yes. What did you see? Sylvia was crying. She just wanted to hold the baby, but Grandma wouldn't let her and Mum got really mad. Did Sylvia try to take James? No. She just asked to hold him, like normal holding. But everyone acted like she was trying to kidnap him or something. Holland's objection was overruled. Forrest, in your opinion, was Sylvia trying to hurt James? No way. She was really gentle with him when he was in her belly. She used to talk to him and play music. She loved him. Valerie was crying openly now, and not the pretty tears from before. The day ended with Melina's testimony about the delivery room, which painted my family as cold and calculating. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. How do you think it went today? Someone shouted. The truth is coming out, I said, surprising myself by speaking. That's all I ever wanted. That night, the news coverage was brutal for my family. The phone call evidence was everywhere. Social media had turned decisively in my favour, but I felt hollow. Watching my mother lie on the stand, seeing the hatred in Valerie's eyes. This wasn't victory. This was the complete destruction of everything I'd once called family. Maggie called that evening. The judge wants to see James before making her final ruling. She's ordering a temporary custody arrangement. You'll get supervised visits while the case is pending. I'm going to see him tomorrow. 2 hours with a social worker present. I hung up and cried for the first time since the trial began, not from sadness, but from something I'd almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. The supervised visit took place in a sterile room at the Family Services building. James was 4 months old now, bigger than when I'd last seen him, with Weston's dark hair and what looked like my nose. The social worker, Mrs. Rodriguez, sat in the corner with her clipboard while Valerie reluctantly placed James in my arms. 15 minutes, she said coldly. That's all the judge ordered. But the moment James looked up at me, something clicked. He didn't cry or fuss. He just stared with those serious baby eyes like he was trying to figure out where he knew me from. "Hi, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm your mama." Valerie made a disgusted noise. "Don't confuse him." "Mrs. Wallace, please step outside," Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. "This is Sylvia's time." James wrapped his tiny fingers around mine, and I felt that same overwhelming love I'd experienced during pregnancy. This was my son, my baby, and I was going to fight for him until my last breath. The final hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. The weekend felt endless. Sunday night, Zoe called. "Sylvia, I need to tell you something. About the inheritance." "What about it?" Valerie knew. She's known for over a year. She had lunch with Josephine last spring, and Josephine told her about the will, about the clause. My blood went cold. "You're sure?" "I was there. We were at that little cafe downtown, and Josephine was talking about how proud she was of you, how she wanted to make sure you were taken care of. She mentioned the inheritance and the condition about your biological child. And Valerie? She got this look on her face, like she was calculating something. 2 weeks later, she called you about being a surrogate. Will you testify to that?" Zoe was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, I can't watch this anymore. What she did was wrong." Monday morning, the courthouse was even more packed than before. The story had gone national over the weekend. I spotted camera crews from 3 major networks. Judge Morrison called the court to order. "Before we proceed with closing arguments, I have some questions for the witnesses." She called Valerie back to the stand. "Mrs. Wallace, I want to give you one more opportunity to tell the truth about when you learned of the inheritance clause." Holland whispered urgently in Valerie's ear, but she shook her head. "I told the truth, Your Honour. I learned about it after Josephine died." "I see. Bailiff, please escort Zoe Dawson to the stand." Valerie's face went white as Zoe walked down the aisle. She looked terrified, but determined. "Miss Dawson, please tell the court about a conversation you witnessed between Valerie Wallace and Josephine Dawson." "It was last April. We were having lunch at Rosie's Cafe. Josephine was talking about her will, about how she wanted to leave money to Sylvia, but only if her biological child was present to claim it." "And Mrs. Wallace's reaction?" "She asked a lot of questions about the exact wording, about whether adopted children would count, about what would happen if Sylvia didn't have kids." "What happened next?" 2 weeks later, Valerie called Sylvia about being a surrogate. She'd never mentioned wanting Sylvia to carry her baby before that lunch. Holland jumped up. "Objection! Speculation!" "Overruled. Continue, Miss Dawson." "Valerie planned this whole thing. She knew she needed Sylvia's biological child to get the money." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in my courtroom!" Holland was on his feet, arguing frantically. But it was too late. The truth was out. "Your Honour," Maggie said, "we'd like to present additional evidence. Phone records showing Mrs. Wallace called 3 different surrogacy agencies the week after that lunch, asking about family member arrangements." "Objection. Overruled. I'll allow it." The records were damning. Valerie had researched surrogacy extensively immediately after learning about the inheritance. When Holland gave his closing argument, he looked defeated. "Your Honour, regardless of my client's knowledge of the inheritance, the fact remains that a surrogacy agreement was signed. James has bonded with his legal parents. To disrupt that now would be traumatic." Maggie's closing was powerful. "Your Honour, this case is about a woman who was used, manipulated, and discarded by her own family. Valerie Wallace orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal both Sylvia's child and her inheritance. The evidence is overwhelming." She gestured toward me. "Sylvia didn't know about the inheritance when she agreed to be a surrogate. She did it out of love for her sister. That love was repaid with betrayal, lies, and legal threats. The defendants have mortgaged their home to fight this case. They've hired expensive lawyers and launched a media campaign to paint Sylvia as unstable. Why? Because they know the truth. James is Sylvia's biological son, and she has every right to claim both her child and her inheritance." Judge Morrison recessed for 2 hours to consider her ruling. I sat in the hallway with Maggie, watching my family huddle with Holland at the other end of the corridor. Mum walked over during the break. "Sylvia, please, think about what you're doing to this family." "What I'm doing?" "Mum, Valerie used me to get pregnant so she could steal my inheritance. That money should go to James anyway, for his future. It will, when I raise him. You can't take a baby from his mother." "I am his mother." Mum's face crumpled. "You're destroying everything. Our family, our reputation, our home. You destroyed our family the day you told me to stop being selfish for wanting to hold my own son." She walked away without another word. When court reconvened, Judge Morrison looked grim. "This case has revealed a level of manipulation and deception that frankly disgusts me. The evidence clearly shows that Mrs. Wallace knew about the inheritance clause and used that knowledge to manipulate her sister into a surrogacy arrangement." Valerie was sobbing openly now. "However, I must also consider the best interests of the child. James has lived with the Wallaces for 4 months. He knows them as his parents." My heart sank. "Therefore, I am awarding joint custody, with primary residence rotating monthly between both parties until James reaches school age, at which point we will revisit the arrangement." "What?" Valerie screamed. "You can't do this! He's my son!" "Furthermore, I am ruling that Sylvia Porter is the legal biological mother for purposes of inheritance law. The estate of Josephine Dawson should be released to her immediately." Holland was arguing frantically, but Judge Morrison cut him off. "My ruling stands. This court is adjourned." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters rushed forward. Valerie was screaming at Holland. Weston looked like he might faint. I sat in stunned silence. I'd won. I'd actually won. But as I watched my family fall apart around me, victory felt hollow. "Come on," Maggie said, pulling me toward the exit. "Let's get you out of here." As we pushed through the crowd, I heard Valerie's voice above the chaos. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. You'll never be forgiven for this." She was right about one thing. I would never be forgiven, but I had my son back. And sometimes that had to be enough. The first night James stayed at my apartment, he cried for 3 hours straight. "He doesn't know me," I told Maggie over the phone, bouncing him gently while he wailed. "Maybe the judge was wrong. Maybe this is traumatic for him. Give it time. Babies adjust faster than you think. But I wasn't sure I was adjusting. The apartment felt too small, too quiet when he finally fell asleep. I dreamed of this moment for months, but reality was messier than my fantasies. The inheritance money had been released, but I hadn't touched it yet. $10 million sat in an account I was afraid to look at, like it might disappear if I acknowledged it was real. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope you're satisfied. You got your money and destroyed a family. James will never love you the way he loves his real mother. I blocked the number, but 3 more appeared within the hour. Valerie's supporters had found my contact information. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw Weston standing in the hallway, looking haggard. "What do you want?" "To talk, please." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "Nice place," he said, glancing around my studio apartment. "What do you want, Weston?" "I want to apologize." I almost laughed. Apologize? I knew. About the inheritance. Valerie told me after that lunch with Josephine. I should have stopped her, but we were so desperate for money and I wanted a baby so badly. "So you used me?" "Yes, and I'm sorry. What we did was wrong." James stirred in his bassinet, making soft baby noises. Weston's face crumpled when he saw him. "Can I hold him? Just for a minute?" I hesitated, then lifted James and placed him in Weston's arms. He held him like he was made of glass, tears streaming down his face. "I do love him, you know. It wasn't all fake." "I know." "Valerie's not handling this well. She's talking about moving away, starting over somewhere else. And you?" "The business is finished. We're losing the house next month. I'll probably have to file for bankruptcy." He looked up at me. "I know you have no reason to help us, but..." "No, Sylvia, please. I'm not asking for the inheritance money. Just maybe you could put in a good word with the judge about visitation. Valerie's his mother too, in the ways that matter. She had her chance to be his mother. She chose money instead." Weston handed James back to me. I guess I deserved that. After he left, I sat in the dark holding my son, thinking about the wreckage of the past 6 months. My phone had 17 missed calls from reporters wanting follow-up interviews. The story was still trending on social media, with strangers debating whether I was a hero or a villain. The next morning, Zoe called. "How are you holding up?" "I'm tired. James is still adjusting and the media attention is insane. I saw the protesters outside the courthouse yesterday. Justice for James is signs everywhere. They think I stole him. You didn't steal him. You're his mother." "Am I? Sometimes I feel like I'm just babysitting someone else's kid." "Sylvia, you carried him for 9 months. You gave birth to him. You fought for him when everyone else gave up on you. You're his mother. What about you? How's the family treating you after the testimony?" Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Mom's not speaking to me. Dad says I betrayed the family, but I couldn't watch them destroy you anymore." "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to get caught in the middle. I chose to get involved. Someone had to tell the truth." That afternoon, I took James to the park. It was the first time I'd left the apartment since the custody ruling, and I was paranoid about photographers. But he seemed to like the fresh air, and I needed to feel normal for an hour. A woman approached us at the playground. She was about my age, pushing a toddler on the swings. "Excuse me, are you Sylvia Porter?" I tensed, ready to run. "I just wanted to say thank you," she continued. "I'm a surrogate too, and your story made me realize I deserve better treatment from the family I'm helping. You're brave." "I don't feel brave. Trust me, you are. What you went through, what you survived, that takes courage." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me staring after her. That evening, I finally opened my laptop and logged into the inheritance account. $10,437,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I transferred $50,000 to a college fund for James. Then I sat staring at the screen, trying to figure out what came next. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Sylvia, this is Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Children's Hospital. I saw your story on the news and I wanted to reach out. Okay? I run a support program for women who've been through traumatic birth experiences. Surrogates, mothers who've lost custody, women whose families have failed them during vulnerable times. I think you might benefit from talking to others who understand what you've been through. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Think about it. You've been through something most people can't imagine. But you're not alone. After I hung up, I looked at James sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. He looked so small, so innocent. He had no idea his existence had torn apart two families and made headlines across the country. But he was mine. Finally, legally, completely mine. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the contact list until I found Mom's number. My finger hovered over the call button for a long time. Then I deleted it. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some families, once broken, stay broken. But sometimes, from the ashes of what was destroyed, something new can grow. I looked around my tiny apartment, at the bassinet, the bottles, the diapers, the chaos of new motherhood. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. James opened his eyes and looked at me, and for the first time since he was born, I saw recognition there. Not confusion or fear, but familiarity. "Hi, baby," I whispered. "It's just us now." He made a soft cooing sound, and I chose to believe it meant he understood. We were going to be okay. Different than I'd imagined, smaller than I'd hoped, but okay. And sometimes, okay is enough.